Elena Nikolaevna is not a superstitious woman, and her profession is very realistic. She's been working in a hospital in the surgical department for more than 3 decades. In that environment, you see so much that often there's no time to guess what exactly needs to be done to save a person's life. If Elena Nikolaevna counted the lives she had saved, it would be an impressive number. But there was one topic, or one quirk, that Elena Nikolaevna tried not to discuss with anyone: the family life of her only daughter, Tamara. Why she decided this, she herself didn't know. The team at work was good, no intrigue or gossip. Most had been working there as long as Elena Nikolaevna, and when newcomers arrived, they followed the saying, "Don't bring your own rules to someone else's monastery," especially since their rules were normal. As for taboo topics, it was the personal life of her daughter that Elena Nikolaevna avoided. And it wasn't because there was no personal life. Tamara was already married. Elena Nikolaevna had a granddaughter named Alenka, and everything was fine with them. But Elena Nikolaevna didn't want to talk about it. She was afraid of jinxing it. She raised her daughter alone. Her husband unexpectedly filed for divorce just after Tamara turned 1, and Elena Nikolaevna hadn't even suspected it could happen. Later, of course, she searched for the reason, replaying their short married life in her memory, but she still couldn't find a clear answer. She decided that her husband's love for her had simply faded, and he probably hadn't had time or been able to love Tamara. Elena Nikolaevna thought about this without anger. It just happened, and she didn't wish her ex-husband ill. In short, she blamed herself. With Tamara's birth, all her attention was on the baby. But wasn't that a reason for her husband to leave? Similar things had happened to her acquaintances and colleagues, and there was fault on both sides, so she wouldn't complain about her ex-husband. And indeed, Elena Nikolaevna didn't complain. True, she responded with refusals to the few attempts by several men over the years to start a relationship with her, not always because she didn't like the man, but because of Tamara. Who knows what he might turn out to be, even her own father. They lived amicably with Tamara, but that was thanks to Elena Nikolaevna. Tamara began showing a stubborn character early on. At first, it was funny. A 5-year-old little girl could flatly refuse a dress she didn't like and hide it so her mom would search for it long, but Tamara still wouldn't go to kindergarten in that dress. She'd pull out another one. It was the same with food. Her daughter didn't like cottage cheese and cabbage, but Elena Nikolaevna knew they were healthy and persuaded Tamara, telling her about the vitamins, but she just shook her head no. As she grew older, Tamara always defended her opinion. If she didn't want to study a subject in school, well, her daughter studied well overall, except for math, where they barely managed a decent grade on the certificate. But Tamara got into university on a scholarship, which delighted Elena Nikolaevna. They never had extra money. They lived on her salary and alimony, but as they say, they lived no worse than others. As a student, Tamara wasn't in a hurry to find a boyfriend, which both pleased and worried Elena Nikolaevna because Tamara remained unyielding and sharp. What guy would like that? Although externally, her daughter wasn't just pretty, she was a real beauty. Often, it was her beauty that made Tamara seem unapproachable, but as soon as she smiled, she seemed completely different. And when Tamara went for an interview at the largest travel agency in the city, she had gotten a geography diploma, Elena Nikolaevna asked her daughter to smile more often. Tamara promised, and later, when she was hired, she said, "You were right, Mom. At first they talked to me so distantly, but then I smiled at some joke and the boss said that with such a smile, work would be much more productive." Strange people. Does that mean my professional skills aren't as important as a simple smile? Well, whatever Tamara said about the smile, it seemed it was her smile that helps the agency secure several more profitable contracts with hotels. And on the personal front, her daughter didn't skimp on smiles either. And then came the day when Tamara said to Elena Nikolaevna, "Mom, you're off tomorrow, right? A guest is coming over, but not just any guest. It's Stas. He's asking me to marry him." That's how it happens. Elena Nikolaevna had waited and waited for this, but when Tamara said it about the fiancé, she was taken aback. "What should I cook? What does he like?" Elena Nikolaevna asked in confusion. He likes me, Mom, her daughter didn't hold back her smile, and I hope you'll like Stas too, Tamara replied. As for cooking, just a regular dinner. Everything you make is delicious. Tamara had two more questions. What does he do for work, and where did you meet? Elena Nikolaevna asked then. He works at a firm next to our travel agency, a programmer. Nowadays, programmers are everywhere, but Stas is a talented one. We met at the cafe next to our offices, nothing original except that Stas isn't like everyone else. Elena Nikolaevna got worried. No, Mom, he's healthy and looks fine. He's not like others because he's special, because I need him and he needs me 100%. Elena Nikolaevna liked him right away, mainly because he had the same smile, immediately endearing. And the way he and her daughter looked at each other made Elena Nikolaevna's soul feel somehow calm and bright, though bright might not be the perfect word, but exactly bright as it seemed to her. Then Stas became a frequent guest at their place and somehow unobtrusively fixed the light switch in the bathroom, moved the gas stove 5 centimeters closer to the wall. It turned out it was possible without violating anything, and now spoons couldn't fall behind it. He strung ropes on the balcony so Elena Nikolaevna no longer had to stretch with all her might to hang laundry. In short, Stas had golden hands and found uses for them. After the wedding, they moved to a rented apartment. Elena Nikolaevna suggested living with her, so what if it's a one-room apartment? The kitchen is big, and Elena Nikolaevna was ready to sleep there on the little sofa, but Stas objected first. I don't agree. We'll be sleeping at night and you'll be quietly chatting with the fridge so that in the morning not a single one of your pies is left for me. They all laughed then. With his joke, Stas didn't offend anyone. Elena Nikolaevna wanted her daughter's happiness so much that sometimes she didn't allow herself to think about it. She had long admitted that she was almost superstitious and told no one about how the young family was living, and she'd knock on wood, but she knew they had a good family. She saw how they treated each other. Elena Nikolaevna herself hadn't known such a thing, but what especially pleased her was how Stas loved his granddaughter. She herself loved that little one very much. She couldn't last more than 2 days without seeing Alenka. At first she thought she was bothering with her visits to the kids, but they were glad to see her, both Tamara and Stas, and soon Alenka would reach out her little hands to her. She already said Baba, and that delighted Elena Nikolaevna so much. And their birthdays were almost at the same time, with a 2-day difference. When Alenka was born, Stas called her right away and said, "The little girl was a bit late, just a couple of days. Otherwise, your birthdays would be on the same day. But this is even better. You'll have to bake 2 cakes, and if anything, I'm the first eater." Elena Nikolaevna knew that now with Tamara on maternity leave, things were tighter financially, and both were more tired than before. She worried that Tamara, with her unrestrained nature, wouldn't make things worse. Sitting at home, her daughter was deprived of her beloved work, foreign trips, business trips, the freedom she had at the travel agency, the freedom to implement the ideas that constantly came to her daughter. But when you have a small child in your arms, a lot changes, and inevitably, the child comes first. Tamara learned what sleepless nights were, endless laundry, and constant worry about Alenka. Sometimes it seems to her that her daughter was breathing heavily, or she didn't understand why she cried so often. She got Alenka used to being held and ended up carrying her practically all the time, to the kitchen and the bathroom. Elena Nikolaevna told her more than once that she shouldn't do that, but Tamara replied that she couldn't bear to hear Alenka cry, and when she wasn't crying, she worried if something bad had happened. And when Stas returned from work, Tamara hurried him to change quickly, wash his hands, and take Alenka. Stas did just that. Tamara seems to forget that he was coming from work, that he had a new project he was counting on. If the project was accepted, they could start saving for a future apartment. But Stas understood that Tamara was tired during the day too, and took over his shift, as he called it. No, Tamara wasn't spoiled, wasn't selfish, and still loved Stas. But it happens when nerves give out from fatigue and worry about the child. She just needed to tell Stas about it, who also wasn't having the best times. But it was all about Tamara's character. Stubborn and impatient, she hadn't stopped being that. Elena Nikolaevna asked her daughter to simply tell her husband what a difficult day she'd had and ask him about his day. But Tamara replied, "I don't understand. Telling what a hard day I had is like assuring that I brush my teeth. You don't talk about such things. It should be understood on its own." After such a response from Tamara, Elena Nikolaevna got a bad premonition. Knowing her daughter's character, one could expect that soon she'd quarrel with Stas completely, and only she, Tamara, would be quarreling, while Stas might not even understand what was wanted from him. Now Elena Nikolaevna called or visited them, fearing that unhappy events were brewing in her daughter's family. But Stas wasn't to blame. More precisely, his fault was there only because Tamara had elevated her husband's faults to a power. Elena Nikolaevna kept planning to tell her daughter about postpartum depression and chronic fatigue, but that it was all temporary. Alenka was growing, they loved their granddaughter, she had a dad, that Tamara should understand. But Elena Nikolaevna felt sorry for her daughter too. It wasn't easy to be with a child all day. What she, Elena Nikolaevna, should do, she didn't know. And soon, Tamara, with Alenka in her arms and 2 bags, arrived at her place late in the evening. When Elena Nikolaevna opened the door, she immediately understood that there was trouble between Tamara and Stas. They couldn't handle it. But she understood that most likely her daughter couldn't handle it. And what now? Would Alenka be without a father too? But how could you compare Tamara's father and Alenka's father? But she understood that her daughter wouldn't hear her now. She was hurting too. While they settled in, bathed, and put Alenka to bed, then they themselves sat in the kitchen as if to drink tea, but neither mother nor daughter touched their cups. And Tamara spoke first. "I can't take it anymore, Mom. We hardly talk to each other about anything. Stas is always at work. He wants to earn for an apartment, but who will live in it? In short, Mom, I ask you not to ask me anything. You can blame only me. Only I can't take it anymore." Tamara burst into tears. Elena Nikolaevna got seriously scared. Tamara didn't cry often, if not never. Apparently she was on the edge. Her nerves had given out. If someone else heard, a woman whose husband doesn't value her, cheats, doesn't bring money, drinks, and raises his hand, would they understand Tamara? Would they sympathize? But how to tell her that now? Her own grief was magnifying. Elena Nikolaevna wouldn't say anything to her daughter that evening. Let her sleep, calm down, and then they'd talk. And 3 stops away, in an empty rented apartment, Stas sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea in front of him, thinking about what to do next. Tamara had left with Alenka, leaving a note that they needed to divorce. They had probably both made a mistake. She'd be at her mom's. Later they'd agree on how he could see Alenka. Stas couldn't believe he'd have to arrange to see his daughter. And Tamara, did that mean he wouldn't see her at all now? How could that be, and what had he done wrong? Stas wouldn't find an answer that evening. When Elena Nikolaevna called him tomorrow, Stas would answer her question about what happened by saying he didn't understand himself, but was ready to take all the blame, only if Tamara would name that blame. Lately, she'd just snap at him without explaining anything properly, push Stas away, go to sleep in another room. He tried to talk to his wife so many times, but she'd just leave and close the door behind her. From all this, Stas's project, which was very important for him, for them, for Tamara and Alenka too, was progressing slowly. He wanted the bonus for it to be the first savings for an apartment, and he told Tamara about it. She'd even been happy then. "You know, Elena Nikolaevna," Stas said, "sometimes it seems to me that Tamara considers me a failure. Then why does she need someone like me? Maybe she doesn't need me, but I definitely don't need any woman except Tamara." In the note, she wrote that only with her permission can I see Alenka, but how is that, seeing my own daughter with permission? Am I a stranger? My most beloved woman has crossed me out. And what does Tamara say to you? Elena Nikolaevna replied to Stas, "And you don't guess that Tamara doesn't say anything to me either? She said not to ask her anything. I know only that she's very tired, constant fear for Alenka. I know that my daughter loves you, only her character is like that. Unyielding it was and remains. And from unyielding comes injustice, and this habit of hers to chop from the shoulder. Stas, I'm not telling you anything new. Here, time is needed. Only sometimes you can be late if you drag it out too long in waiting. But now both of you need to think. As for me, you know how I feel about you, and nothing has changed." In 2 days, Elena Nikolaevna had a jubilee, a sweet table she'd set up in the nurse's room. She'd already stocked up on some things. At home, only family would be there. She thought family and hesitated. Tamara might rebel if she invited Stas, but Stas wasn't a stranger to Elena Nikolaevna. From their first meeting, he'd become part of the family. So she'd tell Tamara, "Stas will be at the table." Well, Tamara couldn't do anything about it. If Mom wants, let her invite. It's her holiday. And the table was set. Elena Nikolaevna dressed up, put on perfume, and Alenka was dressed up too. Her grandma even tied a beautiful bow for her. Only Tamara was in a tracksuit. She came up with an excuse that she hadn't managed to grab dresses. Oh well. Stas arrived on time, and Alenka didn't even let him congratulate Elena Nikolaevna. She immediately reached her hands to Stas, smiled, and started babbling something. And Stas's eyes, when he looked at his daughter, then shifted his gaze to Tamara. One could read a lot. He looked with love and sadness, or was it despair? Definitely unhappiness. Until dessert, this small company sat peacefully. The main thing was, of course, Alenka. Elena Nikolaevna even asked, addressing everyone, "I wonder what Alenka thinks about us now." No one answered, and then Elena Nikolaevna said, "Let's show Alenka the photos from when we picked her up from the maternity hospital. I wonder if she'll recognize us." Herself, probably not. She was in an envelope. "Toma, bring the album." Tamara went for the album. "Oh, I'll never forget that day," Stas suddenly said, and started telling how the taxi was late because there was an accident on the avenue. They took a detour. Stas worried that Tamara was anxious, and she shouldn't be. She was exhausted after childbirth anyway. All the doctors said the birth was difficult, but they said it later, and he stood under the delivery room the whole time, but the doctors were silent like partisans. But he still felt how hard and painful it was for Tamara. She didn't scream, she endured. Then when he arrived at the maternity hospital for Tamara and the baby, he mixed everything up. "Remember, Elena Nikolaevna, how you scolded me? I didn't take Alenka in my arms then. I rushed to Tamara. When I saw her, I thought my heart would stop. Pale, just eyes. But she smiled and everything became my Tamara again." "I remember, Stas, I remember," Elena Nikolaevna picked up. "All dads take the child, but you rushed to Tamara. She was weak then. Then you called me 10 times a night asking if I could give Tamara juice or tea with honey. You were worried about her. I've never been so afraid for anyone as I was then for Tamara. You, Elena Nikolaevna, at least don't tell Alenka what I was like when I first held her. Tamara was the only one in my head. And she still is, but now together with Alenka." And Tamara hears all this. She just enters with the album and stops. Suddenly, the album becomes so heavy that Tamara drops it on the floor and some photos fall out. Stas hands Alenka to Elena Nikolaevna and hurries to Tamara. They both bend down for the album and bump foreheads. But how not to burst out laughing? And Alenka joins the adults. She likes to laugh. Tamara has already plunged into the past. She remembers what a frightened face Stas had when he saw her on the maternity hospital porch. But Tamara was still a beauty then. She saw herself when getting ready in the compact mirror. The nurse was right about her face, not a drop of color. And how funny it was to her when Stas picked her up in his arms and carefully descended the steps. And Mom below only asked, "And who will take the daughter?" Stas pulled another stunt then. He returned with Tamara in his arms and wanted to take the daughter too. Everyone laughed, and the nurse holding Alenka said, "They're both yours, Dad. Just take them one at a time." That's what Tamara added to Stas's story, so to speak. And again, she saw that scene. That was all Stas. She knew how he worried about her, and when they were alone as 3, he said he wouldn't have survived if something happened to Tamara. She didn't doubt it in a minute. And Tamara asks herself, could there be anyone else in Stas's place? She even shivers. No, there couldn't. And Stas couldn't hold back. He told her he was guilty, just asked to explain exactly what, because with this project he was pinning big hopes on, he probably wasn't attentive enough to his girls. But if they weren't with him, he didn't need anything in life. And Tamara knows that because she wouldn't need anything without Stas either. And there was no guilt, and even more so in that they started living so distantly. She was tired. And Stas? Why did they stop talking? Or was she the first to stop? He probably wanted to tell something himself. And if they had twins, then what? Tamara isn't the only woman who gets so tired and looks for someone to blame, and there isn't one. Or there is, herself. And what did she want to do? Divorce? Give Alenka to Stas on a schedule? And Tamara says, Stas, forgive me. This is from fatigue, and I decided that I had it worse than anyone. But will it be better if I stay without you and Alenka without Dad? Stas, we need to change something. Me first of all. What? I don't know yet. I don't know either, says Stas. Maybe like when we decided to conquer Mont Blanc in the Alps, remember? Us, alpinists, a third of the way up and that's it. Remember, we both wanted to turn back and neither did because both, like you warned me several times where to put my foot and you belayed me. And then the fear went away somehow and we made it. Tamara has tears in her eyes and she doesn't hide them. Stas carefully wipes them and kisses Tamara. They'll stay together, share everything that happened during the day again, find time to talk, remember how it all started. They'll interrupt each other, clarify, add. Tamara and Stas need this. No, not everything will be cloudless for them. This is life after all. But both will agree that for them it's taboo to chop from the shoulder, to hush up misunderstandings, to insist on their own without listening to the other. Such a simple recipe and so effective. Later, they'll have an apartment too, and they'll wait for it patiently, but rejoice to the fullest. Elena Nikolaevna will rejoice too. She's a mother, grandmother, and mother-in-law. And though she'll never say out loud how important her children's happiness is to her, Tamara, Stas, and soon Alenka, they'll know it anyway. And the day will come when Tamara will tell her daughter that if not for Grandma, she, Tamara, would have made an irreparable mistake, divorced Alenka's father. It was hard for both of them. Good that Grandma understood and knew this. And what did she do? Alenka asked impatiently. She asked me to bring the photo album, and that's it. What, were the photos enchanted? Alenka was eager to know. The photos didn't come into it, says Tamara. While I was looking for the album, your dad, I don't know what I heard, told how he met us at the maternity hospital, how we met, dated, then realized we loved each other. Dad didn't dare confess for a long time, then told me he was afraid of rejection. And I even got angry at him. I saw how he felt about me, but he was silent. But when he confessed, remember, at the trolleybus stop, I threw myself around his neck. And later I asked why at the stop, maybe in the trolleybus would be more original. But you know our Dad, you can't anger him, but you can offend him, only he'll keep it inside. Yes, I remembered all that. Felt that this is happiness, only I felt this happiness when I almost messed everything up. Mom, what messes? You and Dad love each other, and I want that too. And Dad and I and Grandma want that for you, and we'll do everything in our power so that it happens for you. Only without you, it's impossible. Remember that, Alenka.